believe in the ripple effect.
What's up? Another episode of Ripple Effect Podcast. Of course, I'm your host, Ricardo Rants, also known as Ricky France, and a great episode for you today. Today, I have a Patreon podcast for you. And what a Patreon podcast is a podcast I do with my Patreon supporters. I try to find times and days that work for as many Patreon supporters as possible. I basically schedule a podcast. You guys get to come on the show. I send you the Zoom link. You come on the show. You get to chat, connect with myself, connect with other listeners, sometimes connect with a special guest if somebody shows up, like on this show, and it's a great way of me basically giving back to my Patreon supporters who have been supporting me for a while and are contributing monthly. So if you want to do that, if you want to be on the next Ripple Effect podcast, Ricky Rants with Fans Patreon podcast, you can support me with as little as $1 a month, and you'll be able to participate in these Patreon podcasts. So definitely consider that. And of course, that's not the only way you can support the show. If you go to the rippleeffectpodcast.com or go in the show description, you will find our merch store. You will find so many other things like our Venmo account, PayPal, other ways of supporting the show, like our sponsors, Element Electrolytes, the University of Reason, and Content Safe. So please go in the show description or go to rippleeffectpodcast.com and find all the ways of supporting the show. Also, remember that we have a Telegram group chat if you want to connect with us on there, and links for that will be on my website, therippleeffectpodcast.com. And I wanted to let you guys know that August 12th, it's a Saturday, at Broadbrook Opera House in Connecticut. Sam Tripley will be there, and Broadbrook, Connecticut is not that far from where I live, so I will be at the event hanging out. So if you want to meet up with myself, hang out with Sam, Eddie's going to be there, and many others, please consider checking out Broadbrook Opera House, their website, and buy tickets to the event. And I think that's it. Enjoy this conversation with a couple of my Patreon supporters, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Peace. Hopefully good connection. Hopefully some more people join us. If not, no biggie, I guess. What's up, Jeff?
Hey, how you doing?
Good. What's new?
Oh, not a whole lot. Same old stuff.
You still in the West Coast?
I am. Yep.
How's the weather there this weekend?
It's not typical California weather, man. It's just been raining and not very nice. And I mean, it's still cold here. It's like 60s.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's weird. It's not typical for Massachusetts to have nicer weather than California, but we had a lot of rain in April, and I mean it's amazing how, I say this over and over again, how the weather affects your motivation and mood. Like we had just rain after rain, and even if it wasn't raining, it was just cloudy and not, very motivating type of weather. And then once we started getting a couple nice days of like warm weather and no clouds, all of a sudden you could just see everybody's out, everybody's looking to do things, everybody's looking to, do yard work. They're looking to go for hikes and walks and ride a bike and do cookouts. And it just, it has such a effect on our mood. It's one of the reasons why I'm not a huge fan of living in New England, just because this beautiful weather is so, it's such a small window of the full year here in New England. Like you have to deal with the majority of the year, you have to deal with like self-motivating and finding ways to like ignore the weather because you don't have that little bit of motivation to get out of the house when it's when it's cold out, when it's snowing or cold. I mean, you just find every reason not to leave the house. And then when it's sunny and it's nice out, you look for every reason to leave the house. It's you're when it's nice out, you literally are just like, let's go for a walk. Do you ever say that in the winter? Of course not. You never say, hey, let me just go outside for the sake of going outside. So it just yeah, it's a huge change. You look at places like California or Florida or Portugal, another kind of a beach type of a country. People who spend a lot of time outside just seem to be happier. They seem to be in better moods. They seem to be more cheerful, and I think weather is a big part of it.
Oh yeah, I totally agree. And speaking of Portugal, that's definitely on a place on my bucket list to get to. I watched that 100 foot wave. Have you seen that?
No, but I just had somebody recommend it to me. It's a docu series. Is it a documentary or is it a show? It's a
It's kind of both, um, but it is phenomenal. And I never realized. I mean, you don't hear anything really about Portugal, but I seen that and I was like, oh my god, I got to go there.
yeah,
Yeah, it's an amazing show, man. It really is.
yeah, that's what my coworker kept saying. And he's just like he's like, it's really, really good. I guess they're in the process of watching Ted Lasso and 100 foot what is it called? 100 foot wave, right? Or 100 mile wave or
100 foot wave, yeah.
and he's like, well, they're in the process of watching both him and his wife, and every time they have opportunity to watch one of the shows, his wife's always like, no, we're watching 100 foot wave, we're not watching Ted Lasso, because she's so into it. And I'm like, really, it's that good? He's like, yeah, it's really. He's like, even if you're not Portuguese, if you don't care about surfing, if you have no reason you think to watch this show just as a show alone, it's a good show, and it's intriguing and interesting. And so I'm definitely gonna have to check it out. And yeah, because I have a cousin who lives in Lisbon who is a huge surfer. And I didn't even know, because I mean, I was born in the country, and I knew surfing was big, but it wasn't until like later in my life that I started hearing about how crazy this one wave is at this one beach, and how it's like the biggest waves in the world. And I think what is it? It documents the first surfer that went there and attempted to surf these waves.
There's several of them that they feature in this. Um, Actually, there's a couple women involved in all this and everything. I think I'm not sure if I'm saying it right, but I believe it's is Nazare is where this is filmed at.
Yeah, it's like I've heard the name, and I have to see it spelled to see how it's pronounced. But it's like, yeah, I've heard it said Nazareth or Nazareth. Yeah, it's something along those lines. And I know that like Dr. Jessica Rose, who obviously you're familiar with, when she was on, and she brought it up because she knew I was Portuguese, and she talked about going to that beach, and how crazy those waves are. I mean, the how big your balls have to be to want to do something like that. I mean, those waves will eat you alive. I mean, you see like these surfers, and you see how big the waves are, and you're just like, if one thing goes wrong, I mean, you're just like, you're in like a car crash with water, and you don't know up from down, and you're just in these waves. It's insane. So yeah, so it documents what the first group of surfers that went there to attempt to surf these waves.
Well, I guess from the documentary or the movie or whatever you want to call it, I guess they have a big tournament and stuff. It's part of a tournament series that, and this Nazare or what it means Nazareth in English, but uh, it's just phenomenal. And I never thought waves could get that big.
Yeah, I'm gonna look it up because now yeah, Nazare, yeah, Nazare. Okay, yeah, yeah. And well, apparently, and I don't know, I'd have to watch the series to know. My coworker, and I don't know if he got this from the documentary or the docuseries, or if he got it just because he knew the origin story of the beach. But he said that like these it was American surfers that went there were the first ones that actually try to surf these waves. And I know now, like you said, now they have big tournaments there and big events there. But I think the very first people to surf these waves weren't even Portuguese. It was like some a group of like crazy Americans that were willing to go there and give it a try. And that's what caused or sparked the interest into the waves. I mean, it there's something I've heard Dr. Jessica Rose talk about it, and I think it was probably one of her interests in doing the show I did with Dr. Tom Cowan and do that whole discussion about water. Is she truly believes there's like this connection, but with with humans and water, and there's something special about being in the water. And I'm sure it's probably a philosophy and kind of a connection that most surfers have, because you spend most of your time in water, so you probably have this, I don't know, this just very different relationship with it than the average person who's not constantly in it. But she, it is absolutely phenomenal what the fact that people like that exist. I always say, like, it's awesome that the human being comes in so many different shapes and sizes and different philosophies and different mentalities, and everybody is into different things, because it takes a really unique and special person to want to go and do that. Like, it's not going to be you or me. So it's gonna, it's awesome that those type of people exist that actually enjoy doing that. And it also shows how beautiful just the willpower of humans are, in regards to just like wanting to challenge themselves and wanting to challenge yourself and accomplish something like that. It's just phenomenal. I mean, it's just what we're capable of is just insane. I mean, I remember when Rogan had that rock climber, the one who doesn't use any ropes, what are they, like a freelance rock climber or whatever the terminology. And I'm just like, why? And like, what a crazy thing to try to do. Like, and you talk about all these near death situations where he was struggling, and and I'm just like, you just fall, and there's nobody telling you to do it without ropes. You just want to, and you want to challenge yourself. So it's there's something pretty cool about the fact that we're just so motivated to just there's many of us who are just so motivated to just risk anything to do something. And it's I truly believe that a lot of people think that if there was like some universal basic income or something like that people would just be lazy and do nothing. I think, of course, there's always a portion of the population that would do that, but I think most of us, we're not motivated by money. I mean, we're motivated by purpose. We have desire to do things that are fulfilling. We desire to do things that connect us with others, a desire to challenge ourselves. So I really feel like, regardless if there's money or not money involved as a motivation, many of us would still pursue just doing some pretty fulfilling or creative or sometimes crazy things, just out of I guess out of the love for it, or out of just wanting to do something with our lives that is more than just material.
Oh yeah, I totally agree. But I think it's like, the older we get and you see stuff like that, and your mind just steps in and be like, nope, you ain't doing that.
Yeah, well, you definitely have to be young at some, you get into it when you're young, and it's amazing. I mean, it's almost like my wife will sometimes watch we'll watch MMA, and she'll be like, our kids aren't doing that. She's like, our kids I would never let our kids do that. She's like, how can people how can people get into this? Like, want to be locked up in a cage and knowing that you're in a cage with somebody who has been training to knock you out. or hurt you. And I'm like, yeah, but you're looking at it as like the end result. you have to think about it where it starts, right? Like you're just a little kid, you get into surfing, for example, or you get into like karate or martial arts or jujitsu, then you're kind of building on that craft. You get this love for the sport, this love for the art, and you keep building on it, building on it, building on it. And then eventually, like the next natural step is, hey, you know what? Like I guess I'm going to go in tournaments, and then I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that. And now you got people suggesting like, hey, maybe you should try fighting for a living, and because you started fighting at such a young age, or this martial arts at such a young age, it doesn't seem crazy to you. It's just something you love doing. It's like any other skill. It's like a kid who plays basketball or a kid who plays soccer or whatever. Like it's just a love, a passion that you have. And I think surfing, BMXing, like I was a big fan of the X Games growing up. I was never really good at skateboarding or BMXing, so I was okay. I was good enough to have fun doing it, but wasn't like doing any of the crazy stuff you would see on TV. And I would just envy these guys. I'm like, how do they do that many backflips? How do these guys spin that many times? And how are they doing it without like concern for their body? But then you realize like you start doing it at a young age and it just becomes like breathing. It's second nature to you. You don't think about it. That's why these kids who get into something and find their passion at a young age, like it's they're the ones who really end up doing something special with their lives, because they learn things. When you're young, you learn things in such a way that you almost don't remember it being difficult, right? Like you almost don't like my son, him and my daughter are pretty good soccer players, and it's like they can do things that come so easy to them because they start doing it at such a young age that when I coach kids who are just getting into soccer and are struggling to do the same things that my kids do like naturally, easily, like wow, like this is the difference. Like this is like this that first step seems so long ago that it doesn't, like I almost don't remember it, and the kids almost don't remember it. They didn't, like everything almost comes easy because you learned it at such a young age. So it's, and that's one of our problems with our school system. Like I think that what they should do is, if a kid has a passion towards something, and you could tell like at some kids at a young age, you'd be like, okay, he's really into this, Legos, maybe you can see a future in engineering, something like that, building. We should have more customized schooling where it's like, okay, you're really into music, like this kid really loves the piano, or really like, instead of wasting all the whole day doing all the same things everybody else is doing, maybe have one or two specialized classes just for him to expand on that desire and that love, and really help these kids do something special with their lives, where instead it's always like these cookie cutter courses and everybody has to learn the same things at the same rate at the same time. And I think it makes for a really boring society and kids.
Right. Have your kids always played soccer?
No, well, kind of. I got them into, and it's funny because I didn't really push them in any direction. I at a really young age, I like to get them to dibble dabble in a bunch of different things. So I had always had instruments in the house. I had guitars, keyboards, as you can tell, guitars, and a little drum set. I had always had basketballs and soccer balls, and like just kind of let them like experiment with a bunch of different things and seeing what they were attracted to. My daughter was a little bit more attracted to music. She still seems to be a little bit more on the creative side than my son is. She seems to really be into coloring and drawing and anything that involves imagination. And she seems to be attracted more to like the keyboard and guitar and that type of stuff. And my son was really got really into soccer. And once I started seeing like they were attracted to something, and I'm just like, okay, let me just nurture this. Let me just, help them, push them in this direction. And we have, and I'm sure you probably have them in California too, but we have what they call like premier clubs. It basically what it is. It's like, it's kind of like in Europe where they have academies for sports, for soccer. Here in Ludlow, where I live, there's a big, strong soccer community. Like Ludlow has been state champs of Massachusetts a few times. It's a small town, and our high school teams have been state champs with like big cities like Boston and Worcester and all this stuff. And there's a lot of it's because of our immigrant origin story, and just like there's a lot of Polish, there's a lot of Portuguese, there's a lot of there's Italians, French, and because a lot of right off the boat immigrants came here and they grew up loving soccer. A lot of their kids grew up loving soccer, so it has this like just this love for the sport that you don't really see in other towns. And it, with such a small population, it's amazing some of the stuff that they've accomplished. But they also started this thing called the Western Mass Pioneers, which is basically a club or academy that is for parents that think their kids are like really in love with soccer and want to take that next step. So, you basically have coaches that played like Division 1 or Division 2, and coaches that are from overseas, and like more serious coaching. It's more structural. It's my kids, my son, for example, plays for our town soccer team, which I coach. I've been coaching him for a few years now. And then he also plays for the Pioneers. And so it's like it's a couple more practices a week. It's more games on weekends. And it's, just basically if a kid really has that drive, he gets a chance to not just have 1 or 2 practices a week. He gets to have 3 practices a week. He gets to have, all these extra activities and go in tournaments and all this stuff. So he's, he loves it. And, I'm a big believer of, if a kid loves it, he can't get enough of it, and that's just from like personal experience. I remember when I first started playing music, I could not play my guitar enough. I mean, I remember my fingers hurting from just holding down the strings for so long, and just my forearm being sore from just all the stroking the strings and then playing for so many hours and just breaking strings all the time. And same thing with basketball. You couldn't take me off the basketball court. I mean, I would stay at the basketball court until the lights were off. And, so it's like if you love something, then it doesn't really feel like work. It's kind of like this podcast. I love this podcast. It never really feels like work. It never feels, I never have to convince myself to do it. I never have to be like, oh, dude, I got to record another show. It's always like, I cannot wait to be in front of the mic and just be shooting the shit with whoever is on the show, or whatever guests I have, or whoever it may be. I just love bouncing ideas off people and hearing new ideas and getting people's personal journeys and stories. And so yeah, it just, to me, instilling that love is really important. And or if you find that your kid really loves something, to help them kind of expand on that. My father-in-law is a big baseball fan, and he's always like, oh, why don't you, my son's name is Ricardo, and people call him Ricardo, they call me Ricky, so people know the difference between the two. But he's like, oh, why don't you get him into baseball? He's pretty, because anytime he hangs out with his grandfather, he throws the ball around, and they always play wiffle ball and whatnot. He's like, oh, he's good. He's like, you should get him into baseball. And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, if he wants to, I'm like, I'm not into baseball, but if he really wanted to, I would get him into it. And he was like kind of trying to, he a few times he's tried to like kind of plant the seed, I should get him into baseball. And I'm like, if I get him into baseball, it's not going to be because he wants to play. It's going to be because you want him to play. Like, and even though like you could make the argument that he probably got into soccer because of his dad's Portuguese. Soccer's always been a part of being my upbringing. We all watched the World Cup together, the Euro Cup. I mean, our company shuts down for the Portuguese national team. We will shut down early for a World Cup game or Euro Cup game. And since we've been in business since 04, we've always done that, 03, 04. And it's because like the first time we started doing it, I used to tell my father, I'm like, listen, like the World Cup comes every 4 years, and Portugal might not even qualify next time the World Cup is on. So like if we take a day off because they're in it and it's a big game, it's not the end of the world. Nobody's going to remember, that concrete that we didn't pour. And you know what? And we always gave the guys that work for us the opportunity, like, hey, you want to continue working or do you want to get out early and go and we'll all watch the game together? And so, just about every time it's always let's go watch the game. And if wherever we're working, we'll find some local bar or restaurant that has the games on. And if we're away from home, and we watch it, and it just, to me, it's like it's a fun thing. It's a tradition. Gives you something to look forward to. It's history. You're watching history, and there's just some things that are, I shouldn't say some things. There's many things that are more important than money, and this mentality like, oh, how dare you take a day off to watch a soccer game? It's like, it's just to me, it's like, you never forget those games and you never forget those moments. And the World Cup is the Euro Cup and the World Cup are the two biggest tournaments in the world with the most popular sport in the world. You have the whole world watching these games. It's just, there's something that makes it, really special. And so, yeah, we've always done that. But yeah, my son, he really, really loves, eats, breathes soccer. And I love hearing these stories of these players. Like there's this guy White who plays for the Boston Celtics, and there's an interview before the game, and they're talking to his father, and his father, they're like, oh, did you ever think that your son would be on a team that potentially could be in the finals? And and he's like, nope. He's like, he said he was going to be in the NBA, and we thought he was crazy. Like, none of us thought he could make it. And I'm like, wait, your own parents, your own family doubted you, and now you're playing, at the highest level on TV. And I love hearing those stories, because I hear stories with like kids locally where, like, you see some potential in them, and you'll see, the parents will be like, oh, it's not like they're going to go pro. I'm like, your kid's 8. I'm like, how do you know he's not going to go pro? I'm like, you can't tell at a 8-year-old. I'm like, he could end up like having just taking leaps in quality and skill, like next year or the following year. You don't know. Like there's so many kids who were doubted. You hear these professional athletes, so many of them were doubted, or nobody believed that they could do what they wanted to do and go pro. And they did it. And you hear all these success stories. And I think hearing the failures, hearing about the bumps in the roads, is really important, because there's a lot of people who hit those bumps and they think like, I'm not cut out for this, or everybody doubts me. I should just give up. Maybe they're right. Maybe I am never going to make pro. And it's like, why listen? Don't listen to doubters. Like, why listen to them? Like, pursue it as much as you can. Put as much as of your energy and time and effort into it, and take it wherever it goes. But like, you're never going to regret giving it your all, right? Like, you're going to regret giving up. You're not going to regret giving it your all and seeing where it takes you. So I think too often we hear about, these success stories, even musicians, right? Music's a perfect example. You see a band like Metallica, like your shirt, huge band, one of the biggest bands in the world. And then you hear stories about like, back in the day when they used to call them alcoholic, because they used to drink all the time. And you're like, they were so broke, they would be like, okay, well, I remember hearing this story. I don't know if it was Lars or who told the story, but they were like, oh, well, we could either get food with the little money we had, or we get a 12-pack and we can get full and get drunk. So we picked the 12-pack, and they would drink all the time, because he's like, we didn't have enough money for alcohol and food, so we had to pick between the two. And so you hear about these stories about these guys like literally living off alcohol, and living in cars and all this stuff. And those stories are important, because there's bands out there now who are probably struggling, or have had, or you hear how many bands do you hear the story about how every label told them they sucked or turned them down or wouldn't get back to them or whatever. And it's like, you hear over and over again of stories where like, it's like labels will be like, no, you suck. No, we're not going to sign you, or you're no good, or whatever, or you should change your sound or whatever. And then they just kept doing what they love and stay true to their sound or whatever, whatever vision they had, and eventually succeeded. And I love those stories, because so many of the people who succeed, the difference between them and the ones who fail, that basically it's they didn't give up. They kept going. And when they got ran into hurdles, they jumped over them, and instead of just like stopping at them and giving up. And I mean, that's kind of like the story of everybody's life. It's like it's a metaphor for everything we go through on a daily basis. It's like whatever you love doing, just do it, and don't do it for financial reasons, for fame or being a celebrity. Do it just, if you're doing it just because you love it, like that's good. That's a good enough reason, and it's going to bring you some type of sense of fulfillment and happiness and whatnot. I remember the first Ripple Effect podcast episode I ever recorded. I didn't know. I mean, I didn't even post it yet. I just recorded it, and I felt like I did something. Like I felt like I contribute something to the universe. I'm like, I just started a little bit of a ripple, even though I didn't even post the show yet. I don't know how many people would listen to it or were going to download it, but it just felt good because I told myself I'm gonna do this. I'm not gonna procrastinate. I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna record a podcast. I'm gonna figure out how to do it. I'm gonna figure out how to post it. I'm gonna figure out how to do all these things. And I know there's people who doubt that I'll go through with it, doubt that I'll be able to figure out how to do it or whatever. But I'm just going to do it anyways. And just because I accomplished recording the first episode, and once it was done, I remember being done, and I'm like, oh my God, I just recorded a podcast. Like it felt so good. I'm like, to actually go through with it and feeling like, okay, I'm actually doing it. I'm not just talking about it. I'm like, I'm doing it. And it doesn't matter if anybody was going to listen to it or not. It just mattered that like I'm actually doing something, and I feel like I'm contributing something to the universe and actually starting a ripple in the process.
See how you do it, man. I mean, with everything that's going on with your family and your job and all these practices and events and everything, I don't see how you have time to do this. I really I don't.
Well, it's funny. So I went to the gym this morning before I was on Charlie Robinson's new radio show. He's on TNT radio on Saturday mornings. And I went to the gym before coming back home and getting the studio ready and going on the radio show. And I was talking to somebody at the gym this morning, this older Polish guy who I talk to from time to time, and he talks about going to the gym in the morning, and we're talking about how like I used to go to the gym in the afternoon, and then it got to a point where it's like, okay, I come home after, once I had kids, I would come home to see the kids for like 2 seconds, and I would have to leave again and go to the gym, and I always felt bad. So I'm like, I got to find a way to go to the gym in the morning, convince myself to get up a little earlier. And we're talking about this, and he's like, so many people I talk to say I don't have time to go to the gym. It's like, how about you just wake up an hour earlier and go in the morning? Like everybody can wake up earlier. The gym opens up at 5. You could be there at 5 and get your workout in. So it's not so much finding time. It's more like making time, because it's like we all have the time. We just have to make the time, like actually want to figure out a way to kind of balance everything out. And it is difficult at times. Like even myself, I find myself like for example, I have 2 episodes that I have to release that I just have recorded, and I just haven't found the energy or time. Like anytime I do have a little bit of downtime, it's like, oh my God, I get to relax for like 2 seconds. I don't really feel like, doing some more work on this podcast. Let me just relax for a little bit, because it's just like, it's always go, go, go. And so it's difficult. We're all dealing with that. Like, that's the thing. Like I'm sure there's plenty of people out there that are even busier than me, much busier than me. And it doesn't matter how busy you are or how not busy you are. Like we all deal with the same like self-doubt and procrastination and that inner voice telling you to be lazy and telling you, like do it later or do it tomorrow. I forget who said it. Like somebody said there, I think it was a comedian who's like, oh, I'm writing a diet book. It's called I'll Start Tomorrow. And it was a great line, because I'm like, yeah, that's about like everybody like eats bad today, and they're like, oh, I'll start my diet tomorrow, or they skip the gym today, they're like, oh, well, I'll skip today, I'll go tomorrow. It's like, it's really easy to just constantly keep doing that. What I like to do is like I like to do these little discipline exercises where it's like, I've said this on the show before about Dr. Sean Baker. When I had Dr. Sean Baker on, I had him on And I did the carnivore diet just because one, I wanted to personally experience it, but two, I also wanted to kind of exercise my discipline. I'm like, okay, can I eat nothing but meat for 2 weeks? And then I extended it to a third week. But I'm like, can I do it? I know it's going to be difficult. You know, I love steak, but I know that if you eat it every single day, you're going to get really sick of it pretty quickly. And it was difficult at some points, but I like the fact that I proved to myself that I could do it. I'm like, I could do it. I'm like, I force myself to do something that's difficult. And I think all those little exercises, or like, I play soccer Sunday nights, and I play basketball uh Tuesdays and Wednesdays. And so usually by Thursday morning after soccer Sundays and then basketball Tuesdays and Wednesdays, like Thursday morning, it is, I have so much procrastination built up because I'm like, I am sore. I maybe should be using Thursday as my rest day. Maybe I shouldn't go to the gym. And I'm like saying all these things to myself in the morning, even setting my alarm the night before. I'm always like, you know what? Like, let me set my alarm early enough to go to the gym. I'm not taking tomorrow off. No, no, no. And then the morning comes, alarm goes off, and you're sore and you're tight, you're cramping, and you're like, dude, I can't go to the gym. And I'm like, stop making excuses. Stop. And just like, it's like these mental, like these internal conversations, right? And we all do it, right? We all have those internal battles and conversations and procrastination that's constantly seeping in. And we just, it's the difference is like, okay, do you let it stop you from doing something, or do you win that battle and you do go ahead and do it, And so I find that even if I go to the gym all sore and a little less sleep and tired, I never regret going. But if I skip going all day, I think to myself, I'm like, I probably should have went, and I probably didn't go, because I was being lazy, and not because I was too sore, not because I was too tired. It was because I was looking for reasons to convince myself not to go. And that's on Charlie Robinson's show today. That's why we're talking a lot about health and nutrition and diet and exercise. And that's why those topics are so important to me, because it's like the one thing you can't make more of is time, right? And so if we're limited on time, why not try to optimize every second you're on this earth? Like, why not try to accomplish as much as you can? Why not try to make as many memories as you can? Why not try to do as many things that you enjoy as you can? And I'm 38. I still play competitively basketball and soccer with, in many cases, people much younger than me. And I love it. It challenges me. And I'm like, as long as I still have the health to do it and the energy to do it, I'm going to keep doing it. I love doing it. I feel great detoxing and sweating, and I love challenging myself. And, to me, it's like life's short. So it's like, as long as I can do it, I'm going to keep doing it. And I think that's kind of the way people should look at it. And that's why, like I said, like the shows I do on diet and nutrition are so important, because how do you find time to start, not just time, but finding time is one thing, but how do you find the energy to start a podcast or start going to the gym, or, whatever passion you may have, go out. Like, you figure, I know friends of mine who don't eat very good, don't really take care of themselves that much. They're the ones who are exhausted at the end of the night and they're like, oh, like, I'm too tired, I'm in bed by 9 or whatever. It's like, well, if you take care of yourself and you're full of energy, like, you can have a night where you stay out a little late, and if you're taking care of yourself, you're getting enough sleep, you're exercising, you're eating the things you should be eating. So, with me, it's like, and then once you have kids, it's like, it gives you one more motivation to try to stay as healthy as possible and as energetic as possible. I'm like the most extreme guilty parent you'll ever meet. Like, anytime I feel like I'm half-assing my job as a parent, like, I get really mad at myself. And if I'm spending quality time with my kids, I want to have the energy that they have to go do whatever they want to do. It's like, do they want to go to the park? Okay, maybe I'm exhausted, maybe I went to the gym, maybe I played basketball, maybe whatever, maybe I'm sore, maybe I had a tough day at work and I'm exhausted. But if they want to go to the park, I'm going to find the energy to hop in the car, go to the park with them and play with them, because I'm not going to take these moments for granted. And if it means like I got to take one more energy drink, or I have to drink a giant coffee and to give me my little boost of energy. To me, the way I look at it is it just means I'm going to sleep better at night because I'm going to be, exhausted once I hit the bed. Um, but yeah, it's just like, we're limited with our time on this earth. So it's like we should be pursuing and doing the things we love.
Right, absolutely. And a lot of it just comes down to discipline too. That's how much discipline do you have to make yourself do that stuff. But um, why did you quit the carnivore diet? If you don't mind me asking you.
Yeah, no, you know me, I'm an open book. I don't, yeah, I don't, I liked it. It felt great. I eat a very carnivore-ish diet where the majority of what I eat is meat anyways. Like typically my wife will make a salad for herself, which she doesn't finish, and then I'll end up finishing it for her. And basically what I eat is like really simple. It's like I'll eat steak and eggs, and then the next day I'll eat maybe some ribs or some pork chops with some bacon or whatever. And it's just usually some mixture of meat. I rarely do fish because my wife doesn't eat a lot of fish. I'm not huge into fish. I prefer, a steak or some pork over fish. But we do burgers, we do that type of stuff. It's like it's really meat oriented. So with a little bit of salad on the side, and that's basically it. And then I do a lot of Primal Kitchen stuff to kind of give it some flavor and so you don't get bored with the food, as I'm sure you know. But for listeners, like Mark Sisson, who started the Primal Kitchen company, he was a huge inspiration to me and one of the diet nutrition great minds that really help change this mainstream narrative of about the way we eat and all this stuff. And what he understood was that people were eating healthier, like they're trying to eat a salad or trying to eat more steak and meat or whatever, but there was nothing healthy to put on it, right? The A1 sauce had high fructose corn syrup, or the dressing had vegetable oils that weren't good for you. So he's like, okay, how do you eat good and then still have the sauces and the things that are needed to kind of give the food some flavor? How do you find those sauces, those things that you can add to your food that are just as healthy as what you're eating? So, and then he created Primal Kitchen to kind of solve that problem. And so everything's like organic, based on organic avocado oil and all this stuff. So believe me, if it wasn't for Primal Kitchen, it'd probably be much harder to eat the way I eat, because I think I'd probably be I'd be bored more often with what I eat. But it's with Primal Kitchen, it kind of makes it a little bit easier. They have a chipotle sauce, which is like slightly spicy, goes really good with like steak and any, really you could dip any boring meat in it and it gives it flavor. It's based on with avocado oil also, and it goes good with wine. And it's and then they have steak sauce, they have barbecue sauce, they have tons of different dressings. And he sold the company a while ago, but they still, I've been trying to keep up with just the company and looking at the nutritional facts and stuff like that, and ingredients, making sure it hasn't changed much, and it hasn't since he sold it. But it's, yeah, I still eat pretty similar to it. It helps a lot with like my inflammation and joint pain. Just because I'm so active, I still deal with some joint pain from time to time. But when I'm eating clean, I barely have any joint pain, regardless how active I am. And if I have a meal or two where I cheat, like that, all that joint pain comes back, and I said it on Charlie Robinson's show this morning on TNT Radio. I was in my 20s with like really bad joint pain, and now I'm 38 and have way less joint pain than I had in my 20s, because I didn't realize that most of my issue came from dietary reasons. It was because of the inflammation that was being caused by the sugar and carbs and all the things I was eating, the processed foods and all the stuff. And I always try to eat good, but what I thought good was wrong, right? Like, so I would have protein shakes, and I would try to eat like lean cuts of meat, and I didn't really concern myself too much about like eating rice or pasta. I knew like, oh, you don't want to eat too much of that, but I never really thought it was a much of an issue. And then come to find out, like, once I started cleaning up my diet, I realized like just about all my joint pain wasn't from wear and tear of being active and squatting and playing basketball on blacktop. It was from my inflammation, yeah, caused by my food, So it's I think a lot of our issues can be resolved dietary with dietary methods. You look at like the guy Massimo who did that documentary, um, Moon Man, right, about the moon landing. He also did 9/11, a new Pearl Harbor, and I think probably one of the first documentaries I ever ran into that he did was like called Cancer Cures or something like that, and it was a bunch of like just doctors throughout history or nutritionists that found ways of curing or preventing or fighting disease and illnesses with dietary methods and so I'm a big believer of you give your body the things that it needs, it can do some amazing things, and again, that's why I think diet, nutrition, and health shows are so important because one, it's related to the conspiracy type of topics we're constantly talking about because they basically are all very similar, all the topics, because it's always about like um you're being fed propaganda. The mainstream narrative is a lie, and it's usually manipulated, and you're lied to by big corporations, big government, and for profit and control. And they want you sicker and dumber than ever. And so you have to do your own research and question all those things. And so they're all kind of related, and it's usually and now even more than ever, people are realizing that like, okay, controlling the food is another method of controlling the people and keeping people sick and keeping and not telling people to eat stuff that can grow or kill or pick from a tree. They want you to eat stuff that's processed and stuff that is that fake meat burgers and all that stuff that they can control and they can patent and they can make money from, and then you can get sick from that crap and not get the nutritional value you probably need to, and then eventually get on their pills, so it's I think it's all kind of tied together.
Right, right. Yeah, I work with a guy that um, they buy very minimal from a store. Uh, his philosophy is if we can't grow it or shoot it or hunt it or whatever, we that's not for us. And yeah, they do everything. They got this massive garden, and he hunts all the time. And yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, I remember having a guest on, like I don't know if it was Andrea Lowell or whoever that said like if the food has ingredients, she doesn't buy it. And I remember thinking to myself, I'm like, oh, that seems pretty extreme because just about everything we buy has ingredients. And I'm like, wait, should everything we buy have ingredients? Like we can buy just the ingredients and then just put it all together if that's what if that's what you're looking for, something that has multiple ingredients. But you shouldn't buy things that have a huge list of ingredients. You should buy the ingredients and put it together. And I'm like, well, it seemed extreme when she said it, and then when I started kind of reviewing what she meant by it, I'm like, oh, that makes perfect sense. Like if you simplify it to like don't buy things with ingredients and make things yourself, that and like you said, eat things that you can pick and kill and grow, you'll probably do all right, and that's a good like baseline in regards to like just kind of eating healthier and being healthier is kind of just like eat things that you can pick, things you could grow, things that you can kill, and if you keep it that basic, it you can kind of start from there. And that's why a lot of these diets, the paleo diet, keto diet, carnivore diet, they all kind of have that in common. It's never, nobody ever tells you like eat more processed foods. It's always like eat cleaner and eliminate as carbs and sugar as much as you can from your diet. And each diet has a different threshold where and they have different philosophies on how much sugar and carbs you can intake, but for the most part, it shouldn't be a huge part of your diet. But yeah, we grew up where like the food pyramid was, the majority of it was grains, and it was grains and carbs and breads, and it's like you look at that now, it's like that contributed to a lot of the health issues people have. Like how many people are obese, how many people have bad knees or joint pain because they were eating the way they were told they should be eating. And and to me it's like it's a perfect example of how you can't trust the experts. You should always question authority. And no matter what, you're told, like, do your own research. Like, you know, go find the people that are going against the grain. Go find the people who are questioning the mainstream narrative, and at least explore those ideas and see if that makes more sense to you than the mainstream narrative. And often we find that the experts, the opinions that are the ones that become the mainstream narrative, like those opinions are typically wrong, and they always have other agendas behind them on why they want you to eat a certain way. You end up finding out that, like, the food pyramid's influenced by big food and the food industry. You find out that medicine is influenced by big pharma and the pharmaceutical industry. So it's like you find out that it's always about money and power. And the more control you have over your health and your body, the better. Don't put your faith in these organizations and institutes in regards to you know believing that they care about you, because they don't.
Right, right. I know it's so hard. I mean, you try to find, like supplements and vitamins and stuff that there's so many people. It's like, well, you think something that's good, and then somebody, no, you don't want none of that. You want this. And then, the next guy will tell, no, you don't want that. You want this. And it gets really mind boggling on what do you need? What is a good one out there?
Well, that's true. That's kind of one of the issues with, like, the diet and nutrition world, is that there's so many conflicting opinions. It's like
Oh,
there's so many. Some people will tell you, like, oh, you need this many milligrams of magnesium. No, you need that many. Or this is a bad type of salt. This is a good type of salt. This is, like, all the conflicting opinions. It's so true. That's why, I tell people, like, we're all different slightly, and we all can adapt to things slightly different, and we react to things slightly different. I know, like, Rob Wolf, when he was on my show, and maybe we didn't talk about when he was on my show, but I know he's talked about how his wife and him, like, they, when seeing their ketone levels, and if they're in ketosis, like, if he eats any carbs whatsoever, he immediately gets kicked out of ketosis. His wife could eat, like, a little bit of pasta or rice or whatever, and she's fine. So they're, like, processing those carbs slightly different. And so it's like, to some people, they can eat a little bit of, rice or pasta, and maybe it doesn't have a negative effect on them, and somebody else, it might. And so I think everybody's slightly different on how you react to things, what you need or don't need, but the beautiful thing about the human body is that you can kind of, experiment with yourself, try certain things, see how you feel, and then maybe modify it slightly differently. But the vitamin world too, like, yeah, there's a lot of just BS supplement companies out there that will tell you that, there's this amount of vitamin C or whatever it may be in the product, and then there isn't, or it's some poor quality version of it. So it is hard to know what's good and what's not. There's some brands out there that you can find that are just like the ones that have been around for a long time. I try to find, the companies that I know, have been around for a long time, and I trust, and have been making good products for a long time, or and try to stay away from any, like, new brands that have all these fancy labels and claim all these things, and you don't really know much about them, because you can make a lot of money off supplements because they're not FDA checked or approved or anything like that, or tested. So, like, we don't know if they're lying, about the quality of their product. But typically, those companies don't last very long. With the internet, things get around. If a company is lying about their product, eventually somebody will call them out on it, and they'll be exposed. And eventually, like I said, the word will get around. But even with supplements, like doing blood work, I haven't done it, and I probably should, but doing some blood work and just seeing, okay, what am I low of? Like, let me just find out what I need more of. And everybody might be different. Maybe some people have lower iron. Maybe some people need more electrolytes, more magnesium or potassium or whatever it may be. So doing some blood work that doesn't hurt, But I think most things, like, if you eat somewhat clean, and you move, because that's the other thing. Like, I think it's not just diet, and it's not just exercise. It's both. You need both. If you move, you feel better. And the more you move, the more you want to move. And I, anytime I'm in front of a computer for too long, like if I have a couple of days in the office where I'm just staring at a computer for 6 to 8 hours, like I feel like a freaking zombie. I mean, I come home and I just like find very little motivation to want to do anything. But and then when I'm out in the field and I'm getting my hands dirty and I'm out in the sun and I'm coming home physically exhausted. I might be a little physically exhausted, but I'm motivated to continue to do stuff and get up and do, So I just think having an active lifestyle is super important. Find something that you can do. I know like pickleball is getting like really popular with older people. It's kind of like a easier version of like tennis. So if you're maybe not as athletic as you used to be, you can play something that's like a variation of tennis, but it's not it's not so demanding physically, but it's still demanding enough where you're getting a workout and you're doing something. And I love that. Like find something that go for walks, go for I think it was Mark Bell who taught he talked about the 5 minute walk. He would do like 5 minute walks, and it was just something simple, right? But it's just like you're moving, you're outside and you're moving, you're getting fresh air, you're getting vitamin D, and just from going with that little walk, you just feel better, and to me, I'm also a big believer of like earning your downtime, right? Like I feel like I can appreciate my glass of wine at the end of the night, or I can appreciate putting my feet up and just relaxing after I've accomplished something. If I've done something productive, if I feel like I've earned it, then I can enjoy it. I feel like I've enjoyed it. But again, and so much of this, what we're talking about is also mental, right? Like you said, it's discipline. It's like, telling myself that like, hey, I'm gonna enjoy this rest time much more if I find a discipline to go be productive today and do some things that maybe I don't have the energy to, or maybe I don't have the motivation to. But if I do it, I'm gonna feel better. Like mentally knowing and understanding that right now, it's hard to imagine and picture the outcome that I'm going to feel better at the end of this, but I am, and just get up and do it, So I think just movement. I mean, the younger people, younger than us, like there's so many kids who just are growing up in a world where it's completely acceptable to be glued to a screen or a TV or a tablet or phone for most of your day. I mean, you're literally living in a virtual reality most of your day. Like you have decided that the physical reality is not as much fun, and I'd rather be in this digital reality. And it's, I think, all these serotonin dumps and all this like constant happiness that you're getting from like getting a like and getting another notification, like it's just not fulfilling. And you're gonna at the end of the day, your body is a machine that needs to move, and if you're not moving it, it's gonna fall apart. And so I think that's going to lead to some health issues too in the long run.
Oh yeah, I totally agree. Um, yeah, I'm fortunate enough to where I work outside as well, and I enjoy it. Except for when it's raining, of course. But yeah, you feel good. You getting that fresh air and get motivated, and you just keep hustling and sweating and getting dirty, and then at the end of the day, it's just like, yeah, that was a good day.
Yeah, you feel great. I mean, it's almost like you detox, your body's sweating out whatever it needs to sweat out, and you feel like good. Your pores are open. You feel I love when I get like a good sweat, and to me, look, Scott's joining us. Yeah, I mean, I love it. I mean, and speaking of working outside, Scott's another one who works outside, and there's definitely. What's up, Scott?
What's up, Ricky? Hey,
Funny,
Jeff.
we're just talking about work.
Hey,
That's hilarious. I just I just got off another Zoom call and I looked at my Telegram. I was like, oh, I wonder if Ricky's still doing a show. I'll pop in there. So there you go.
Yeah. What's up? Yeah, we were just talking about working outside, and I'm sure you could probably relate to that. We're just saying how great you feel like after a day of like accomplishing something. You're outside, you're sweating, our bodies are machines that are designed to move, and I always use like classic cars or garage cars as a perfect example of the human body. Like you garage a car and you figured, okay, if the parts aren't moving and they're not wearing and tearing, then I could just start the car and everything should work just fine a year later. And it's like it doesn't, because that car was engineered to move and lubricate, and those parts need to be in motion. And our bodies are the same way. Like if you just sit still, and your brain is so intelligent, your body, I mean, I should say, like your body knows, like, I'm not going to waste resources on building muscle or strengthening your bones or whatever it may be, and wasting these resources if you're not putting it, in any situation where I need strong muscles and I need stronger bones and I need, to strengthen anything. It's gonna sustain from doing that, and really, not use any resources if it doesn't need to. So, constantly putting, and same thing with our immune systems, right? Like you need to be. That's the other thing about people who work outside, like, germs isn't even in our vocabulary. I'm like, you share tools with people, you sweat on each other, you're sharing water bottles, you eat next to each other, and sometimes you don't even have somewhere to wash your hands. So you're just like, well, I'm eating anyways. I'm not gonna not eat because I don't have a sink to go wash my hands and soap. So like, and look at construction workers. A lot of these guys, like, they smoke cigarettes, they have a drink after dinner. I mean, after work, they'll go have a 6 pack or whatever it may be, and yet they still have the energy to do their job, which is very physically demanding all the time. So it shows, like, even with those negative things of like maybe smoking or having a drink after your shift, all the positive health benefits are going to get from being outside, vitamin D, exercising, moving their body, sweating, being around germs. Like, it's still, it still outweighs the other negative things, that they have the energy and the tolerance to do that stuff. I mean, so you look at like a guy who's been a union labor his whole life. My dad's one of them. He's in he was born in 59, so he's in, mid 60s, and he's been working construction his whole life. And before he worked construction, he was a farmer back in Portugal. And so he's always outside. And this dude, like, he's like a perfect example of a body emotion stays emotion. He's always doing something. He's never not doing something. He comes home from work and he's checking on the goats and the rabbits and the, feeding the chickens and what, like, always doing. Most people are front in a cubicle all day and don't even find the motivation to go pick up food or make food. They end up ordering takeout and get it delivered to their house. So it's like, it's just, our lifestyles are so backwards. And I was telling Jeff, like, I was on TNT radio this morning with Charlie, and
Nice.
I was we were talking about, like, the reason, because he was talking about why I do so many shows on health and nutrition and get doctors on, and people like Rob Wolf and Dr. Dominic D'Agostino, and it's because, like, how do you optimize your life, and how do we do the things we want to do? How do we find the motivation to start I mean, look at you. Jeff was talking about how busy I am. I'm like, dude, like, talking about being busy. I mean, Scott's probably just as busy, if not busier than me. I mean, every time I look up, you're like you're putting together an event, or you're hosting another show, or you're doing, and it's like, so finding the energy to do that stuff, it starts with, like, taking care of yourself, right? And it's, eating better, it's exercising, it's keeping, moving, and giving your body the stuff that it needs. And and I'm sure, obviously, you don't drink anymore, and you live a very sober lifestyle. I'm sure that's been a huge help in your sleep, your energy levels, right? All that stuff.
Yeah, and yeah, totally, man. Like, totally. It's kind of shocking sometimes how I'm able to fit a lot of this stuff into a day. You know what I mean? Like, I've actually kind of intentionally gone down to like one rebunked show a week. I was doing like 2 or 3 a week, and I'm like, dude, I'm dying. So I'm like, okay, I can like surf at one for now, while I still have other competing demands. But it's interesting how, like, the podcasting and then the stuff associated with that, like some of the work with Substack, like, it's actually kind of moving into where it's like there is some revenue with the Substack stuff. And so it's like, it's like I'm able to kind of take a step back from certain other things, and I found a good balance right now. So it's really interesting how that's been. So I don't know, but it's been good, man. Like, but as far as like just being healthy, yes, like I was not functional for many, many years of my life. Like my 20s and early 30s, I was just completely gone. Like I was even like homeless for a while, just like the drinking and all the stuff. Like it took me all the way out. And zero ability to basically even feed or clothe myself. Basically, like I was like as like minimally functional as a human being could possibly be, you know. And so, you know, now it's like I feel like there's maybe part of me that's like making up for lost time. And there's like, oh my God, I lost 15 years of my life. And it's like, well, all my friends have like houses and cars. It's like I'm just like starting from scratch, like in my early 30s, you know. And it's just been like, but now like just with a huge focus on health, and even just in the last like month, like rededicating myself to really focusing on that in a lot of different ways. I met a gal, which is awesome. And she's a huge focus on health and nutrition. She's really helping. We're doing like this something that she's done in the past. It's like a healthy eating protocol. It's called Wild Fit. I don't know if you've ever heard of that. It's basically just going back to like what humans are meant to eat, like eating seasonally, like if we were like back, our ancestors would eat fruit when fruit was in season, and then they'd like eat like meat, you know. Anyway, it's a really cool program, and like so I'm focusing on that. I'm already feeling just unbelievable results, and it starts off with like a big, like I just got done polishing off a full one of these of just like veggies, dude, like veggies and a little fruit, and it's just like that just boosts me up, you know what I mean? Like it's crazy. And so anyway, so yeah, that the health, focusing on health now, you know, really helps to save on hospital bills later. And then like how do we, you know, I go to the gym all the time, and like I see people there that are like maybe in their like 70s, 60s and 70s. They're like, this is like, you can tell like this is their first attempt in their whole life to do anything fitness related. And it's like, man, you know, that's tough. It's tough. So anyway, that's the focus now, you know. That's absolutely it. So I can agree. And that gives me the momentum and the energy and the just everything. It's like a cyclical thing. Once you start, and I would say it kind of, for me, it starts with exercise. Like the exercise piece makes it so that I don't crave junk food. I want, my body craves good food. And so then I'm like more incentivized to eat healthy. And then like when you're exercising, you just like, I lay down, I fall right asleep. I sleep for 7 hours. I wake up, I'm ready to roll. You know, it's crazy. So and then it just gives me everything I need to do, all the stuff I need to do each day, you know, which includes working outside, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's why it always amazes me when I see people who work their butts off at the gym and then they leave the gym and I see them pulling into a Wendy's or what. I'm like, you're literally just you're throwing away all the hard work you just put in.
Yeah.
And, you know, because it's like if you're just putting in crap food in you, and then that's the difference between somebody who looks different and doesn't look different. Like, sometimes it's not what you're doing in the gym, it's what you're doing outside of the gym. You know, like Jeff and I were talking about having the discipline to eat right, and those cravings do go away. That's the thing. Like at first it seems hard, you know, your body does go through, Scott's probably very familiar with withdrawals, and a lot of times when we talk about withdrawals, like we think about like alcohol or substance abuse, but like there's withdrawals to sugar and food and junk food, and just like any withdrawals, like eventually once you get over that hump, you know, it's like smooth sailing. Like you get over it, and you do those cravings do eventually go away. You just have to have the faith and the discipline to get over that. And once you do get over that, you know, you're in a much better place where you end up not even wanting that stuff, which is an awesome place to be. Like I don't crave junk food at all, you know. And typically, like if I ever cheat, like I'm always like, oh, I don't like this feeling, you know. Like you eat clean, you're so used to like digesting the food properly and not feeling full and bloated and crappy that you know, eventually when you do cheat, you're just like, oh, I don't like this feeling. Like the you know, little bit of mouth pleasure I got isn't worth it. So and the thing about my gym too is like you do see some of those older people that you, like you said, that you could tell like it's the first time ever taking care of their bodies, and they're like 60 or 70. And but I also see the 60 and 70-year-old gym rats that are there every day, and you're like, wow, man, like they still find you know, a way to get in here, and they come in every day and they take care of themselves, and they're stretching and they're exercising. Maybe they're not doing a lot of weight, but they're in here and they're doing it, you know. And to me, that's so inspirational, because there's so many people, you know, half our ages who say, oh, I don't have time to go to the gym, or you know, or let themselves go, you know. Or I say it's the people who peak too early, like the ones who like still talk about their high school career. I'm like, dude, like high school is like 4 years out of your life. You know, you're not even old enough to drink yet, you know, when you're in high school. Like you peaked way too early because you're spending the 75% of your life talking about that like 10% of your life. It's like like what have you done with the rest of your life? Like it doesn't mean you like peak at high school and then you stop doing anything. It's like to me that's not an excuse. Like like I was telling Jeff, I'm like I still love competing against younger kids, in sports and whatnot. And I love still like pushing myself and whatever because to me it's like it's always about that internal. It's not so much you're competing with anybody else. It's like I'm competing with myself. Like how hard can I push myself? How, like I always tell people, even like, I tell my kids, I'm like, don't worry about other kids or whatever, how fast they are. I'm like, keep challenging yourself, like, and keep improving yourself, and the rest will fall into place, and so, and as you get older, like it becomes a mental health protocol. The reason why you go to the gym, like physically feel better, but mentally I feel way better when I go to the gym. I went to the gym this morning. I already accomplished all my workouts for the week. I did back, tries, shoulders, legs. I did everything. But I'm like, I'm going just to get like a light workout, getting my heart rate up, doing a little cardio, do a little core, do whatever I feel like I neglected during the week a little bit. And I just felt better, even though I didn't get like some crazy awesome workout. I just went in and did something, but I knew I had to because when I went on TNT radio, I'm like, it's kind of early in the morning. I'm like, I want to make sure that like mentally and physically I'm like awake and I'm in a good mood and whatever. And if I skip the gym and I just kind of lounge around until the show, I probably wasn't going to be at my best. So yeah, I mean it's so important for just mental health and then also the community thing, right? You go to the gym, you see some familiar faces, you're around other people, you the small talk, the networking and making friends and all that stuff. I mean it's an awesome thing, it's a beautiful thing, and it goes again to like what I was talking about earlier about like how necessary it is for us to be social and be around others and have communities to be at our happiest.
Absolutely. Yeah, I completely agree with all that, which is ironically all the things they tried to remove from us during all the lockdown eras, right? It was like, the health, the focus on health, the focus on community, all the things that they know nurture and feed the soul and that, we need as humans in order to be mentally sane and not subjective to their propaganda. Like that's the best way to get our minds in a state where we can be fearful and then receive whatever messaging they want to provide when we're scared and running around and not with each other and unhealthy. It's like, they knew. It's crazy.
Yeah, without a doubt. And you're doing that uninjected, what is it, uninjected podcast too, right?
Dude, yes, we'll have to have you on, Ricky. So I'll send you a link to sign up if you ever want to do it. It's Friday nights at 9 Eastern. I know it's a little late in your neck of the woods, but like, yeah, man. So it's all based on unjected.com, the world's first unvaccinated dating site and community building site. They've been through some crazy trials and tribulations. They got kicked out of the Apple App Store and the Play Store after having this vicious mainstream media attack, like back in 2021. Like literally, like it was like Jimmy Fallon. Like we have a clip of Jimmy Fallon ripping on him. It was like Forbes, Business Insider, like the whole mainstream establishment just attacked, like just descended on them, and so they got kicked out of the store. So they relaunched as a browser-based website, and then just recently, like last month, they had a developer who was just not like their website was pretty clunky. It had a lot of issues with it, and so they got they fired the developer, and when he left, he basically just locked him out of the site, took the money that was there, and it was like a whole shitty situation, and so they had to basically nuke the whole site, and they were able to keep the domain unjected.com. But this is right around the same time that the wellness company, like Dr. Peter McCullough's little affiliated organization, like they came on and wanted to help become like backers for Unjected basically. And so they've come on as like partners, and they're a huge company, and their developer IT team is basically, as we speak, rebuilding the website, and it's supposed to launch next week. So the brand new unjected.com is going to be out next week. And oh man, I can't quite spill the beans, but the question, and so they started doing premium memberships, and so they actually were able to bring me on as an employee. So I'm the executive assistant for unjected.com. So I've been helping them out with like some of their administrative stuff and advertising, marketing. But anyway, so the one question we always get asked is like, well, how do you verify that people are actually unvaccinated, right? That's what everybody asks. And so I will say this new iteration of the website thanks to like the wellness company and some of their infrastructure, we do have a process to test whether or not people have been vaccinated or not. And it's going to be part of like the verification. Like you don't have to, people are welcome to join. And even there's, you don't have to be unvaccinated to be on there. There's just an option that says that, I identify, I took the shots, but I woke up and I don't believe in all this nonsense that's going on in the world. And I believe in free choice. And so, we invite all those people to come 100%. But there's just a checkbox that just says, yes, I took the shots. And so, some people are looking for an exclusively unvaccinated partner. And so like we try to provide that for those people, but also at the same time, like, yeah, so we're excited to roll that out, like the unvax verification process, which is crazy. But to piggyback off all of that, and how I even got involved with them in the first place was I had Shelby, the founder, on the show, on my show Rebunked, and I was talking to her and she was like, after the show, she's like, we tried to start a podcast, but like we couldn't figure it out. And I'm like, well, let me help you. And so that turned into the Unjected Show, which is an awesome, fun show, live call-in show every Friday night. So yeah, if you ever want to hop on, man, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, I'd love to. I know you guys
Yeah.
do it on Friday, so I'm like waiting for a Friday that my wife's not working that
Gotcha.
I can join, because she usually works as you guys know, the restaurant business Friday nights,
Yeah,
and
totally.
a hot day. And but it's a great idea. I love call-in shows, like in regards to like I've been wanting to like do a call-in show just because I like talking to people, and I love like just like bouncing ideas off each other, like maybe debating, maybe giving advice, like all the things that come with it, and I know like the OBDM show, when they would do call-ins, it would always be it would be really fun or really awkward. You get the weird call-ins. And have you guys got any of those, like any weird call-in? Like,
there's a recurring guest that calls in. I'm not gonna go so far as to call him weird. He goes by Vegan Jules. He's a character. He's awesome. I think he's hilarious. He's on quite a journey, in his own personal journey. I try to give him like pep talks. He's basically like lives alone in his car with his cat, and I'm like, bro, let's get your life together and find you a gal. Like, you know what I mean? He's like trying to find a gal but living in his car. I'm like, come on, dude. Anyway, so that's fun. There was one. So we had Dr. McCullough on for one of the episodes, and so pretty much we opened up the phone lines, and all the calls we got, one after another, were people calling him out for just his stance on, well, just believing in viruses, basically, for not being 100% like terrain theory person. Now, I will say, I'm about to do a big push on my show investigating the terrain versus germ theory, because I want some answers. I want to figure this out for myself. I have Tom Cowan coming on Tuesday to really kick it off. And I believe there's a lot of credibility to the terrain model, and I'm leaning more towards that in general. And when you look at the history between like how it even started with like Louis Pasteur and the virus theory, and Antoine Béchamp and the terrain model, it's like there's a lot. It's like you can see the corruption from day one, and how they latched onto the virus germ theory as a way of control, and they knew that they could get power and money out of this invisible floating thing that everyone needs to be afraid of at all times. And that's what born the pharmaceutical industry. And I feel like, hey, if there is credibility to the terrain model, and that viruses aren't actually the cause of disease, then we could literally like take down the whole pharmaceutical industry if enough people were to get on board with that idea. So I don't know. I don't know. And so I want to investigate that. But anyway, it was funny when McCullough came on, he was just barraged with terrain people. And that's the one thing I appreciate about the terrain community, is like they've got to the point of like flat earthers, where they're like, which I'm not 100% sold on that either way. I don't know if we're on a ball or on a terrain or realm or whatever you want to call it. I'm open to it all. But what I don't appreciate is like, flat earth people will just viciously attack you if you just don't. They're like, you fucking idiot, blah 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 blah. It's like, oh my god, dude, like now I do, you know what I mean? So, and who knows how much of that is like part of the agenda to kind of demonize the whole movement in general. But I've started to notice that like the terrain discussion is veering into that land where it's like they'll call Peter McCullough on a live show and be like, you're such a shill, why don't you talk about terrain there? And it's just like all this shit. It's like, okay, all right. So
that's a huge issue, is like once people pick a philosophy or community, then they turn on everybody else. And it's we can agree to disagree, we can have different perspectives. I mean, and not just that, like you're also making people that are typically seen as not your enemy, and people who are fighting for the same type of things, now you're turning them into your enemy. I mean, whatever your perspective is on the training theory or whatnot, like Peter McCullough is not the enemy. Like he if anything, during the height of the lockdown, he went on the biggest show ever and pushed back and could have ruined his career and probably in some cases definitely made his life much more difficult because of it. But yet he was outspoken, and it's like, but so you're putting your energy and efforts into calling him out. Like why aren't you calling out like people on mainstream media? Why aren't you calling out Jimmy Fallon or any of these pro-vaccine idiots? It's like, why are you to me, yeah, it's not a good look. It's the same thing with like you said, the flat earthers, Bitcoin, same thing. It's like it's like they pick a community, and then once you're a part of that, and they're the same type of people that would fall in love with any cult, right? I think sometimes it's a lack of like community, and you find like a purpose, and you're like, oh, this is my purpose. Like I found my truth, right? This is the truth that I've been looking for, that explains everything, and now I have to defend it. It's like, if you're truly a skeptical person and open-minded person, like that journey never stops. Like that should never come to an end. Like you should never be like, okay, I'm at the finish line now, like I figured it all out. No, we're never going to figure it all out. The world is too complex. There's too many avenues that we can go down. There's too many perspectives and things to research. I mean, your show is very much like mine in regards to like you go down a lot of different topics, and you realize when you go down different rabbit holes that you could spend your whole life down that rabbit hole, and you would still not understand it to a point where like you're 100% confident that you've come to the correct conclusion. And so it's like, if you're going to dibble dabble in a bunch of different topics, you'll never really know, or you should never be 100% certain about anything, because there's always going to be some perspective that you didn't hear out that makes sense, or some other there's some part of the debate that you haven't entertained yet. So it's like, yeah, I mean, it's a huge, I mean, you saw with 9/11, right? Like all the different theories on what happened with towers, and it's like, and then everybody starts turning on each other. I'm like, why are we fighting among ourselves? Like, aren't we on the same fucking team? It's like it was frustrating. I mean, I've talked about it in the past with like people in the 9/11 community, like even on my show, people calling out other people in the community, and I'm just like, didn't feel comfortable with people coming on my. I'm like, well, like, no, you can't say that their intentions were to deceive people, because I think their intentions were to spread truth, just like yours, and maybe you think they got it wrong, but it doesn't mean their intentions. Like I get shit wrong all the time. Like I'm sure there's plenty of shows I could go back into archives and find stuff that like my opinion slightly changed or I got wrong at some point. But that's okay. That's like the journey of life and discovering truth. Like it's, like I said, it's not a journey that ever ends. It should be constant and evolving. It's it's like when I had Alex on from Alex, what's his name? Who from the Skeptical podcast? No,
Alex Sakaris.
Yeah. And he, like I had all this feedback from people saying like, I'm so happy that you pushed back a little bit, because it's like he wanted me to plant my flag that the world was not flat. I'm like, no, because I plant my flag nowhere, and I am open to all debates and like nothing, and what's crazy is like so many people think they're open-minded, and then there's always that one topic that they're like a little tribalistic on. I'm like, oh, you got it. Like, this is like the one topic that you picked a team. Like, you're not as open-minded as you are with other topics. And like Alex was one of those, because he's like very open-minded with like spirituality, near-death experiences, all these things that are kind of like, in mainstream science is like considered like pseudoscience. And yet like you think this is like complete like horse crap. Like that's the I mean, you're literally dismissing something the same way people dismiss some of your beliefs, and it's like you don't want to just dismiss it. You want to at least be respectful enough to to not talk trash about it without actually entertaining the top. I mean, it reminds me very much of like the vaccine debate. How many people growing up I would have this conversation about vaccines with, and like they would completely dismiss the fact that there could be any correlation with like health issues and vaccines, and yet they've never they dismissed it so quickly that they never even looked into it. They didn't think it was worth even looking into. And that was like the flat earth thing. Like a lot of people, like I would say, like the flat earth topic was really a test to see how skeptical you really are, like, and how open-minded are you. Like, did you, when you heard the flat earth argument, did you at least look into it? Did you say, hey, you know what, I don't know, I'm going to look at, or did you dismiss and say it's so silly, I'm not even going to look into it? Because to me, like, there is no theory or story or conspiracy that is too crazy for me to at least look into.
Exactly.
Because when you've uncovered the things that many of us have uncovered, and you found so many things in our world and reality and our history that has been lies and manipulations, like, where do you draw the line? Like, why couldn't they lie about the earth being flat? Why couldn't they fly? You know, to me, like, there is no topic that you shouldn't at least entertain.
Yeah, there's no question about that, and that's where exactly where I'm at. Like, I don't feel like there's any end point to the learning or the understanding of the world, and it is true. Like, once, you know, that's part of the journey that does get a little demoralizing at times. Is like early on, once you start to recognize how big the deception is, it's like, and then it just keeps going. Even to this day, like, I can't even remember. I feel like I had one recently where it's like, really, it's that insane too. You know, it's just like it just keeps getting more and more messed up, and it's like anything is possible, anything is capable of. And like, once I realized, like, once you start really understanding just like the amazing, just like fractal, spiritual, like higher dimensional nature of this reality, it's like, okay, I'm open to everything, dude. Like, bring it on. So I don't know. But the idea and the vitriol of, like, you know, chastising people who are at different points of their journey, or just, you know, if you don't have the same exact worldview as me, then you're evil. You know, I've seen a lot of that with like organized religion too. It's like, if you don't believe in our exact religion, like, even within, like, well, I'll just say like Christianity, like, even within, I've seen like one community recently like just get eviscerated because one person questioned a certain element of the actual hardcore dogma of the Orthodox Church, and like all of his Orthodox followers turned on him and just complete the smear campaign because he didn't believe in this one specific piece of dogma. And it caused a whole rift in the entire community. And it's just like, really, really, like, that's just crazy to me. So I don't know, man.
Yeah,
So
and
yeah.
when that happens, you have to rethink, like, what's your motivation? Is your motivation to be right, or is your motivation something greater? You know,
Mhm.
do you just care about being right, and anybody who questions what you think the truth is an enemy? Like, to me, it's like it's not about that. And you know, you should never dislike somebody because they disagree with you, you know, and you
Yeah.
should never, to me, like, I love talking to people that challenge my beliefs, because
Yeah.
I don't, like I said, that, like, I don't plant my flag anywhere. So I want my ideas to be challenged, because if I can't defend them, I have to rethink them, right? And then that gets me closer to some type of truth or understanding. So yeah, without a doubt. I mean, that's why I love, like, last time, like, Dave Zed was on the Union of the Unwanted. Anytime he's on, he's just like mind blowing, because I love those conversations where just like we talk about like the material world so often, right? We talk about big pharma, and then it's like, screw all that. Like, let's talk about what the material world is or isn't, or what it could be, or what,
Yeah.
you know, it's like he takes it to a whole nother level. So it's like we don't even understand the material world, and like the way we perceive things, and why we perceive things a certain way. And like, you know, there's so much to the universe that it's like any of the possibilities could be possible, right? Like, I'm not going to dismiss any of it. Like, I'm not going to pretend to understand. But you know, I think the thing is, like, when you watched a lot documentaries on like cults, right, and people who would join the cults, and people who bought in and became tribalistic, and fell in love with this community. A lot of it was like people who didn't have community and then found a community there. You know, there are people who were like, okay, I was a runaway, or I was, you know, or this or that, or I was at a crossroads in life. I didn't know what I was doing with my life. And then you find this community that takes you in, and you find some happiness there, and you find some, like I said, some sense of community. So without a doubt, that's you know, you could see that happening, a similar type of effect with people when they find like the flat earth community, or they find the Bitcoin community or whatever. Like it becomes, it becomes very religious and there's nothing wrong with that. Like, just you shouldn't dislike other people who maybe have a different worldview.
Yep, no doubt about that. So, that's the one thing about the establishment or all these people, like the tribalism, like even though they may disagree on certain things, like they can come together with a single unified view of defeating, what they perceive as the enemy, what the media paints up as the enemy, that the enemy is like this big straw man. It's like, that's why, like, things like situations like Trump, where it's like, all you need to do is build up this straw man character like a Trump and get the divide, you have pro Trump against Trump, and then you can just attack that false idol or that straw man, and then that demonizes everything, and it gives them a rallying point where it's like they can disagree on all kinds of different things, but as long as they're unified on the one goal of hating Trump or taking out Trump or whatever the case may be, like that's powerful. We don't have anything like that, and we don't think in those terms. We don't think in that sense, almost to our own detriment, like you said. Like we're so often our own little, just the minutia of one issue. Like I heard Richard Grove on Grand Theft World, he was quoting some libertarian philosopher. I can't remember who it was, but he said, like, libertarians spend 95% of the time arguing about the 5% of the things they disagree on. And it's like, if we could just realize that we all have the same goals and motivations, like we could actually be more productive with it, And so it is a sad state of affairs. And, I think that, that's one of the huge, awesome benefits of having a show like the Union of the Unwanted, or just the shows we do in general. And like your show in particular, you always talk about how, like, the value of bringing people we may disagree with, or people that have a different opposing views, and bringing them together and find the common ground, or just at least initiating the conversations, especially like through COVID, like what we saw, like with Steve Kirsch, putting up millions of dollars saying like, oh, well, then debate me. I'll give you $1 million to come debate me. And nobody would do it. It's like things like that. It's just like, the more conversation we can have that bridges the gap, that's, a way out of this thing for sure. So, yeah.
Yeah. And during COVID, you did see a lot of that where people were just divided and you couldn't even have a logical conversation with somebody you disagree with. It would turn into emotional conversation. And I mean, it just, life's too short, man. Like we can't let, them, for a lack of a better term, win in regards to like making your neighbor your enemy. I mean, I remember how disappointed I was on people who were calling the cops on people who were having Thanksgiving with their families and people over and gatherings. I'm just like, what have we become? Like we're all turning on one another, and that's finding that common ground is important. And I think you can learn a lot from people you disagree with. They have a perspective you might have not entertained. You've had a perspective that, and it's funny because we talk about tribalistic people. Libertarians can be very tribalistic too. They think that they found the truth. They're, and it's like, you know what? I haven't really found a great argument on who's going to pave the roads. And libertarians get so bad, like it's like, well, everybody always says, who's going to pave the road? I'm like, because it's kind of a good argument, and the explanation isn't really that good on how it's going to happen. You trust private corporations and companies and people to take, so it's like, and it's not to say that like socialism's a better alternative. Giving more power to the corrupt government who locked us down is not any better either, and but I think that there's nothing wrong with admitting that there's like, okay, maybe we don't have it all figured out. Maybe we're still trying to understand it. And maybe the best system is some type of hybrid system or something that hasn't really been thought out yet. And at the end of the day, it's like, these people aren't your enemies. The enemies are big pharma, big food, the military industrial complex, the governments that only care about, money and power and influence. And I mean, think about it. You spend millions of dollars to get a job that pays thousands of dollars. Like, why is, any politician wanting to get all their skeletons in their closet exposed, right? Because that's going to happen. Whoever's opposed to you is going to find that video of you talking about grabbing them by the pussy, and that's going to happen, and like any stupid thing you've ever said is going to be discussed and exposed. Why would you put your family through that? Why would you put yourself through that? Why would you spend all this money traveling and doing interviews and doing all this stuff if it wasn't for some type of corrupt reasons, and because of obviously you're only going to get paid thousands of dollars. It's because of all the influence. It's about the power. It's about all that type of stuff. What's your guys' opinion on Robert Kennedy Jr. and him running? Do you have is there any? Do you guys have any positive outlook on him running, DeSantis running, Trump? Do you think? I mean, any of the three, I think, would be a better alternative than what we have. I mean, I can't even believe Joe Biden's even entertained the idea of running. I'm not even sure he knows that he's running. They're just telling him, that he's going to, and they're just going to keep changing his diaper as long and keep him, probably shot up with some B vitamins or whatever the hell they're giving him to sound cognitively aware from time to time. Because I don't get that either. Like, he actually did do good in the debates with Trump when they debated. And I'm just like, that's not really Joe Biden. That must be some type of, they must have shot him up with some experimental HGH B vitamin something, because it's just
meth, straight up meth.
Straight up meth. Yeah.
Yeah.
It might have been that. Yeah. Well, who was it? Was it JFK or was Hitler or somebody who was on meth there?
Hitler, dude. Yeah. Have you ever seen that video of him tweaking at the Olympics?
No.
Dude, it's hilarious. He's got a pistol in his hand and he's like grinding it on his dick and he's just going like this, like, argh. And I think they sped the video up, but he's just like grinding his dick with his pistol in his hand. It's like, what the fuck is this? I'm like, that guy is really high on that. Yeah. That's hilarious.
So, what do you guys think of anybody running? Have you lost all faith and think that it's just a complete waste of time even thinking about it, or do you think that maybe these, if you're picking the least of all evils, maybe we do have some options that are halfway decent?
Jeff, you want to take this?
You got to unmute yourself, Jeff. Sorry, I muted you because you had a little bit of background noise. No, yeah, you're good now.
I don't know really who. I always just try to go with the lesser of the evils.
And you think that we have some decent options? I mean, I want to like Robert Kennedy Jr. I mean, I've been trying to get him on my show for a long time. He's pushed against some very big like big pharma and big chemical and all this stuff. He's pushed against them and for a long time and been a part of some really important lawsuits and whatnot. His career's just been basically focused on that type of stuff, and he's even gone deep into the anti-vax movement and the medical freedom movement and all that stuff. And even though it could be career suicide, he did it anyways, which I think it's a good reflection of his character and the fact that when he believes in something, he's willing to take some risks to fight for those things. So I think that's a good a reflection of his character. I am concerned about him running as a Democrat, but I don't even see how he could. I mean, they're not going to do debates for him. They're going to basically sabotage him the same way they sabotage Bernie. And so I'm just kind of curious on where it goes from, if there's any, does he see any path to actually winning, or is he just going to throw his name in the hat and hope for the best? I don't know.
Yeah, man, it's crazy. Well, personally, like yeah, I'm thinking I'm gonna sit this one out. I'm kind of embarrassed after the 2020 situation. Like, I was full blown Trump, dude, like all the way. We were like, yeah.
Well, you know what? Okay, in your defense, Scott, I must say, like, I almost feel like I can understand why people were so into Trump. He was so different than everything we've had previous to him. He said all the right things. He didn't seem like he was being told to say. It's not like a typical politician where it's like, oh, these are your talking points. These are the things you should say because this gets people, voters to think you're for this or against that or whatever. Like it didn't seem like it was like media manipulation of like who he was as a person, or they were trying to like mold him into this character. He was a character. What you see seemed to be what you get. My concern, and I think everybody's concern, was always like, okay, does he actually have morals and a philosophy that he's true to, that I can get a better understanding at who he is as a person? But at the time, it was like, okay, he just seemed to push back, and I think people like that. And it's like, okay, this neither establishment liked him. It's like Whitney Webb when she was on the uh, uh, Patrick Bet David podcast, and Patrick Bet David's a Trump fan, and he's like, name a organization or a group of people that have been awful to America, like that's taken away your freedoms and has made the America worse. Who likes Trump? And you think about big pharma, because and people forget, because now he talks about warp speed, and he talks about, oh, how great with the vaccine. He kind of seems to flip-flop on that, but people forget that big pharma didn't want to help him out either. They only announced the Pfizer vaccine after the election, and they did that on purpose. And he pushed back on like the mask wearing. He pushed back on he kept saying like, oh no, this thing will by this holiday everything will be opened up, or by that, he kept giving these time frames to shrink the lockdown. So it's like he did push back. Him and Fauci pushed back. He pushed back on some of the alternative treatments, hydroxychloroquine and all that stuff. He talked about using it, all that type of stuff, which was a huge hit to big pharma, because big pharma doesn't want you to believe that, like, hey, anything else worked besides the
Totally.
remedy they had. And if the president was willing to take hydroxychloroquine, most people are like, okay, if the president's doctor is willing to prescribe this to the president, then this can't be that dangerous, So he knew it would change people's perspective on it, and be much harder for the media to use those fear tactics to not try any alternative. And so he did. So I can see how this, calling out media people who were obviously going into the questioning of the president to kind of paint a picture that he was this awful person, like not just playing the theater game. Like I always say how in the past, you have media that's going to ask you a question for the purpose of, like, trying to catch you in something. And every politician would just kind of go along with it and be like, okay, how do I answer this in a way where I don't make myself look bad? But Trump wouldn't play that game. He's like, no, he's like, I know what you're doing, or whatever, you're fake, or whatever, So people like that. He kind of pulled back the curtain a little bit. And people forget that the Republicans didn't want him to run either. Like they jumped on board when they realized it was a train that they couldn't stop, right? And nobody wanted him to run. Everybody talked trash about him. Nobody thought he could win. People always talk about how, like, CNN helped his election because they would talk about him all the time and give him all this airtime. But the reason they did that is because not even CNN believed that he could win, and they thought they were just highlighting how ridiculous he was, because he would just say all these ridiculous things that you're not used to a politician saying, But so to me, like, I can see why people, like, I don't think it goes either way. I don't think he was a savior, but I also don't think he's just like every other politician either. I think a lot of times we talk about picking teams, like there's a lot of that going on in the alternative media community, where it's like, you can't even say that Trump, like everybody likes to just like simplify it and say, oh, they're all bad, they're all the same, they're all, and I'm like, kind of, but not. Like, there you can see some pretty distinct differences between Trump and the other ones. The fact that during one of his debates he brought up vaccines, like, show me any politician that's ever publicly questioned vaccines, never mind during a debate where everybody is watching,
like traditional vaccines, the whole traditional vaccine thing that he
where he talked, Dr. Ben Carson or whoever he was. They actually brought it up for the purpose of making Trump look bad, because they kept thinking they were going to get him. But Trump was so good at, like, just like answering the question in a way where it's like it didn't work. It didn't make him look bad, and they brought up vaccines with another doctor on the panel, because they're like, there's no way this isn't going to make him look bad, because you have a doctor who's going to disagree with him, and then you have Trump, who isn't a doctor, so he's going to say something crazy, and the doctor's going to go with the mainstream perspective on vaccines, and he's going to make Trump look like some conspiracy theorist anti-vaxxer. Instead, the opposite happened where he's like, I think, there's we're giving too many vaccines to too many young kids, and there's some parents that had kids with adverse reactions, whatever. And Ben Carson's like, yeah, in regards to that, like, I do think that, maybe we should rethink how many vaccines we're giving to young kids. So it's like, I'm like, and I remember seeing that, I'm like, I cannot believe that this is happening. Like, being in the fringe anti-vaccine community for so long and having so many people look at me like I'm a freaking crazy person for even questioning vaccine science, and having a guy who could potentially be the president on national TV having this discussion, I'm like, you cannot dismiss that. I'm like, that was historic to some sense. I'm like, the fact that he has kind of helped make it a more mainstream conversation, and then you look at, like, the videos of him talking about 9/11, and then the fact that he actually invited Robert Kennedy Jr. to the White House to talk about vaccines. Like, I'm like, there was reason to, because a lot of times we paint this picture of everybody who became a Trumper as like, oh, see, I told you so. It's like, no, you didn't tell anybody so. Like, there was reasons. And if you start Del Bigtree on the High Wire had a great montage where he talked about how, like, there's a reason why people were like for Trump during the lockdowns, and he showed all these clips of, like, Trump questioning things, Trump pushing back against Big Pharma, Trump wanting to minimize these lockdowns, pushing back on Dr. Fauci, all this stuff. And they showed all these. I'm like, so it's like, no, this faith in Trump didn't come from nowhere. It wasn't like this illusion that, like, we got tricked into believing that he was on our side. No. There's reason to believe that he was fighting for similar things. There's reason to believe that he had similar perspectives on these issues as we do. So it's like, I think it's just the reason why this works me up a little, because I've seen a lot of people in our community like bash people who were Trumpers and be like, oh, I told you so. See, they're all the same, warp speed. Now look at him. I'm like, well, he's bragging about warp speed because the fact that, like, they literally demonized him for saying he's never going to get the vaccine, and that they demonize him by saying that, like, I'm never going to take Trump's vaccine. And then now all of them are celebrating the vaccine. And it's like, oh, so when you thought Trump was getting the credit for it, you demonize it. And now that you can kind of detach Trump from the vaccine, now all of a sudden the vaccine was the savior of the world. And and I think that's kind of his way of going, like, hey, let me remind you, everybody on the left who's trying to, celebrate this vaccine, like, I deserve some of that credit. And I think that's what it's about, which is a huge issue, because it's like, it kind of makes you think, like, okay, popularity is more important than morals or having a perspective on something. But in your defense, like I said, like, I think that there's a lot of people that I think are doing this shitty thing of, like, saying, oh, I told you so. They're all the same. It's like, no, you can't say that he's the same as Obama and the Bushes and the Clintons and, and the Reagans and all these people who came before him. Like, you can't. Like, there is a difference. And now I'll let you guys talk, because
Totally. Well, yeah, I could go off on this forever, and I definitely have some thoughts on RFK. But Ricky, I got to bounce, dude. I got something here coming up shortly, but I just want to pop in real quick and just say hi to you and your listeners and the Patreon people. Thank you guys for supporting what you value. That's what it's all about, man. So there.
Yeah, well, without that, well, Scott, enjoy the rest of your Saturday. Keep up the great work. If you guys from the Unejected Show ever want to come on the Ripple Effect podcast and about the new
100%.
website and whatever stuff you have going on, let me know. We'll definitely get together and do that.
Is it that same Calendly link and everything?
Yeah, you could use the same. Yeah.
I'll get with them and we'll take a look, and that'd be awesome, man. That'd be fantastic.
Yeah, and you guys are doing great work, tons of great guests. So definitely check out that show, and of course check out the Rebunked podcast. It's a great show, tons of great guests, and of course tons of work at Last American Vagabond and so on and so forth. So keep killing it, Scott. We'll keep in touch and enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Thanks, Ricky. You too, man. Later, Jeff. Have a good one.
Hey, yeah, have a good one.
All right, you too. See ya.
Awesome. What do you got planned for this weekend, Jeff? You got anything?
Yeah, just watch baseball.
Who's somebody playing today? Somebody you're a fan of?
Yeah, Yankees are playing the Padres today.
Oh, nice, nice. Yeah, we
Yeah.
I was so my father-in-law is a huge baseball fan, and he's um a Mets fan, and so every year we go to Citi Field once a year for a Mets trip, and we just went not too long ago, and so my kids are Mets fans because I don't watch much baseball, so going to the field and experiencing it live, and then their grandfather being a big Mets fan, they're like, well, we don't really have a team, so like, I guess we'll adopt the Mets. So now they're kind of Mets fans. But I will say it's a beautiful, beautiful stadium, and I have been to Yankee Stadium before too. I went in 2019 to go watch my Portuguese soccer club, Sporting, against Liverpool, and they were what they did prior to COVID, and now that you're starting to see them do it again, is a lot of times the preseason games for soccer clubs are in America. They'll come to America or go to different parts of the world, countries that maybe they wouldn't normally play in, to go do preseason games to give people in America opportunity to see some of their favorite clubs from Europe. So Sporting and Liverpool played each other in 2019 at Yankee Stadium, and I brought some friends with me. And Yankee Stadium was pretty cool. We went out to eat at like some little, I think one of my buddies recommended some little Italian restaurant, and then we went to like a little Italian bakery, and it was a really cool like little community. And I can see why people kind of embrace that whole like Yankee culture and whatnot. It's pretty cool.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Um, when we was talking about soccer earlier and everything, and uh, the popularity of it is just unreal. How that sport has exploded, and San Diego. I live closer to San Diego than anything. I'm only like 20-25 minutes outside of San Diego, but they're getting a professional soccer league down there now. So I want to I want to like the game, but I just don't know enough about it to say I'm a fan. The only time I ever watch it is like when the big tournaments. That's it.
Well, you know what it is? It's like when I was growing up, and I've said this before, like when I was growing up, you would hear about the great soccer players, the David Beckhams, the Cristiano Ronaldos, the Henrys, all these guys, but I couldn't watch them. There was not really a way of watching these guys. Where like now, so much of it's televised. Like tomorrow's like the last day of the Premier League, and so they're gonna have tons of games on every single channel, and it's going to be the last big hurrah, the last day of the Premier League, and it's just awesome that like there's going to be all the soccer on TV, and people get to actually watch the greatest players in the world playing for these like historic clubs. Like I was talking about going to Yankee Stadium. A buddy of mine, actually the guy that I started the podcast with, Dave Kornacki, my co-host when I first started, he came with us, and he's not a huge soccer fan, but his brother, who I believe it was his brother who passed away, who was a huge Yankees fan, so he always wanted to go to see Yankee Stadium, so he took it as an opportunity to go see Yankee Stadium, and he just loved the history of it, right? And he loved just seeing the history and all that stuff, and that's kind of like the beautiful thing about soccer too. It's like the history of it, right? Like some of these clubs have been around for so long. It's like you'll see the clubs under soccer clubs under logos, they'll say like established in like 1892, and it's like, what? Like that's how long this club has been, this team's been around since the 1892, and so it's like, and so you think about like your grandparents, your great grandparents, like how many generations have been watching this team, and so it becomes like a part of the culture, becomes a part of the family, the traditions, it's awesome. But for the longest time that was kind of detached from Americans, and now you get to grow up watching some of the best players in the world, like Manchester City, who won the Premier League. They their manager, the coach, Pep, is one of the best managers in the world, and he's going to go down in history as one of the best managers in the world, and it's going to it's to see his. I'll tell you, if you want to get into it, there's a great documentary series called All or Nothing, and there's one on Manchester City, which is really good, and it's about the season that they had, like this historic season when they won the Premier League, and it goes into like Pep and his story, and I mean, just to see how amazing of a coach he is, and his attention to detail, and how much work they put in, all the ups and downs, and all that stuff. It's awesome. And so I think as it becomes more and more easy to access in America, I think the sport's going to get more and more popular, and people are going to start understanding it more. I think that is a turn off for people. Like, if you don't get a sport, the rules of a sport, it's hard for you to enjoy it. It's hard for you to like it, if you don't really get it. But I think as like people start growing up, understanding the sport a little better, it's the biggest youth sport in America. But the problem is, like, I think because it's not a big sport to watch on TV in America, that little by little, your friends are talking about the Celtics game, your friends are talking about the Lakers game, your friends are talking about the Dodgers or the Yankees or whatever, or the Patriots. That little by little, you're like, nobody's talking about the sport that I'm playing. So you end up idolizing the Tom Brady's, the LeBron Jameses, the whoever,
Right.
the Derek Jeters, and then you want to be them, and then so it starts off as a real popular youth sport, but then because you're not watching it on TV, and you don't your idols aren't playing that sport, the people that you're idolizing and the posters on the wall, like, that's a big part of you falling in love with a sport. Like, if you enjoy watching it, and you're a student of the game by watching it and learning from these great players, you'll end up wanting to play it more. So to me, I think like America's in this transition where I think now that it's more and more on TV, like, we're going to see some really, really good soccer players from America. I think in the next like 10 to 15, years, like, soccer in America is going to blow up in regards to like skill wise and talent wise. And we're going to compete with like all the biggest countries, because you're going to have the same great athletes that we've had, but now you have kids growing up wearing, Man City jerseys, wearing Real Madrid jerseys, wearing, Manchester United jerseys, and knowing the players and watching the games. And so I think it's going to be you're going to have kids who literally eat, breathe soccer, the same way somebody would eat, breathe basketball or baseball or whatever. And I think we're going to get to a point where we're going to catch up, because I think that infrastructure was always the problem with America. I think that it's pretty phenomenal when you think about their ability to compete with countries that literally soccer is the biggest and the only sport that matters in those countries. And yet we're in a country where we have baseball, basketball, hockey, football. We have all these great sports that a lot of our best athletes end up going into, right? Like, if LeBron James was given a soccer ball at 3 instead of a basketball, and he uses that hardware and software that he had, his IQ, his physical gifts, and that work ethic to play soccer instead of basketball, he'd probably be one of the best soccer players in the world. Our best athletes aren't playing, soccer, in many cases, so I think as the sport grows, and now like with the internet and everybody's watching the same games, like the Champions League finals is going to come up, I think, in a week or two, in a couple of weeks, and that's going to be a great game between Inter Milan and then Manchester City from England. And these are big games, and people are going to watch. And I don't know, I'm really excited about the future of soccer in America. And the girl, like, so you're close to San Diego. San Diego has a girls team. Alex Morgan, probably the most famous female soccer player, plays for, I think they're called the San Diego Waves. And now, like, women's soccer is getting more popular. The league, I should say, because the U.S. team's always been pretty popular, but like now the league's getting a little bit more popular. And so I'm really excited. I think that the sport's going to grow. There's something, like, me being a history buff, like, I love the history of some of the rivalries. Like, I was explaining to somebody like the rivalry between the Real Madrid and Barcelona. Like, it's not just two clubs that hate each other. Like, there's political reasons why they hate each other. Like, Barcelona has been trying to get their independence from Spain for a long time. It's almost like Texas getting their independence from the United States. Like, they feel like we're different, than the rest of you guys. Like, we have our own culture, we have our own language, we have we're just a different, almost like a different country, and they've been fighting with Madrid, which is the capital of Spain, with trying to get their independence. So like, they don't just represent two different parts of Spain. They represent two different types of people in Spain and two different cultures. And so, there's this dislike of one another that's even, deeper than soccer, and so there's all, and like, you always hear the term derbies. Like, derbies are when two teams or two clubs are from the same area, right? So you have like the London derbies, all the London teams when they play each other, and you have like the Manchester derby between Manchester United and Man City. So it's cool. Like, I'm a Spurs fan, a Tottenham Hotspurs fan, and the team that Harry Kane plays for, and they have a North London derby between them and Arsenal. And like, so when I got into Tottenham, I'm like, why do they hate each other so much? And then come to find out, like, Tottenham was in North London first, and then Arsenal built right next to them, like built their new stadium right next to them, and they were like the only like North London team. So it created this dislike of one another. Like, dude, you didn't have to build right next to us, and you did. So, and then there's like all that history of that. So it's really cool, like, just like seeing that, and then how long these rivalries go for, right? Like, it just, like I said, like, some of these clubs are so old that it's just like, it's crazy how long these rivalries have been going at it, and rivalries are what makes sports awesome. Like, I love rivalry. Those are the games that you get the most. I mean, I'm sure when the Yankees play the Red Sox, like, you can't wait. Like, you mark it off your calendar. Like, that's going to be a good game. Like, it doesn't matter who's on the roster. It doesn't matter what type of season you're having. Like, those are games you want to watch. And in many cases, like, those wins mean way more than any other win throughout the season. And so it's like, it's what makes it fun. And we need that detachment from all the issues we're constantly talking about. I've for a long time, I lost my desire to watch sports, and like, I'm like, it's just sports. I'm like, there's way more important things to do with my time. And then, like, I'm like, you know what? But if I get, what's wrong with just enjoying something that brings you joy for a little bit? Like, we need that. That's what life's about. It's about enjoying it while we're here. And if it brings you a little bit of joy watching maybe some pointless, meaningless game, then that's okay. And you're also watching people who have invested and so much of their time and effort to be the best of the best. When you're watching any professional sport, and you're like, how much work and time and effort and everything need to go right to be on this roster, to be on this team, on the, playing these big games professionally. You know how many kids all over the U.S. play baseball? You know how many kids all over the U.S. play football and basketball? Like, these are like a small percentage of those kids, and they're the best at what they do. And watching anybody who's really good at anything, to me, is entertaining.
Yeah, exactly. I'm I'm huge into just pretty much baseball and the UFC and Bellator and football. I kind of lost interest a little bit in, but yeah, it's just I try to keep up with things the best that I can. But why is it that Brazilians speak Portuguese? Where'd that come from?
Yeah, well, that's it's kind of a similar story to why all those countries speak, they don't have a native language. It's the Portuguese settled there. And, Brazil had a lot of sugar cane, and the Spaniards actually. So the story goes that the Spaniards went there first, and they try to take over Brazil with muscle, and they and then they lost, and then the Portuguese went there and like, we're going to take a different method. We're going to bring them business and infrastructure. And what they did is they came and they're like, hey, we'll help you profit from this sugar cane. You have all these natural resources and whatnot. And then we're going to, these businessmen went there and then started these businesses or whatnot. But at the time, Portugal, they still had many of their countries from their empire. So like Angola was a part of Portugal. They speak Portuguese there. Mozambique, all these different countries, African countries. So what they did, these businessmen didn't have enough employees and people to work the sugar field. So they were bringing people from like the African speaking or the Portuguese speaking African countries to Brazil to also work. And that's why when you look at a Brazilian, they can look so drastically different from one another. You can get a Brazilian that looks African, right? Looks black and African, and then you get a Brazilian that looks Portuguese, looks white, and looks, like a lighter featured, Western European. And it's because that's kind of what they're a mix of. They're a mix of the natives with the Portuguese people who went there and settled there, and then also a mixture of the Africans that were brought there. So it's like this. That's why they come in such different sizes and shapes and colors and whatnot, because it's such a melting pot of different cultures, and different types of people. But obviously, when the Portuguese went there, they brought their language, they brought their culture. So a lot of Brazilian culture, even though it is different and to some extent to Portuguese culture, there's a lot of similarities because a lot of it comes from Portuguese culture. So their music's slightly different, the way they cook is slightly different, but you can see all the similarities, and there's a lot of similarities. And now even their Portuguese is slightly different. Like I can meet Brazilians that I struggle to maybe understand them because it's kind of like a English speaking person from Britain, and then an English speaking person from the US. Like we're going to speak the same language but slightly different, different accents, different dialects or whatnot, maybe different even different like slang words or whatever, and so like counting on where you are in the US, like we might use different slang words here in the East Coast than you use in the West Coast. I know, like in the West Coast, the only time I ever went to California, like a lot of people, I was young, and a lot of people would say hella, and I'm like, hella, like everybody says hella here, and it's like, where we're from, everybody says wicked, oh, that's wicked cool, or that's so it's like it's similar type of thing. So but yeah, it's same thing with like all the Spanish speaking Central and South American countries. It's because the Spaniards went there and then kind of forced them to speak their language, it's very, very similar. So, and it's funny because you meet a Brazilian, and there's some Brazilians who see themselves as a extent of Portuguese people, and I understand there's a connection there between the cultures and the countries and whatnot. Like the first king of Brazil was the Prince of Portugal. So when Portugal controlled Brazil before they got their independence, it was like the Prince of Portugal that was sent to Brazil to basically run Brazil. And so there's always been that connection. But then you meet some Brazilians, and they kind of consider themselves a completely different culture and say there's enough differences where it's kind of like their own thing. But one thing we do have in common with the Brazilians is our love for soccer. That's definitely, the Brazilians are absolutely amazing at soccer. They're, they're one of the best, South American countries. Obviously one of the best South American countries, but also one of the best countries in the world as producing great soccer players. So, and obviously jiu-jitsu, right? So jiu-jitsu and soccer, they're absolutely amazing at.
Yeah, the jiu-jitsu is big out here. I mean, huge. Yeah, it's got a big following. But yeah, cool, man.
How long you been watching
Well,
MMA? Have you been
I've been watching the UFC for 30 years.
Wow. Oh, so
When it first started, yeah, I was into it, but it was kind of cool back then, because there wasn't no weigh-ins and all that stuff. You just got in there and fought. But as it's changed and everything, I mean, I enjoy it. I think I enjoy it more now than what I did.
yeah, it's more of a sport people can appreciate now, and it's not like what they used to call like human cockfighting, right? Like it was,
Right.
but it was yeah. I grew up on the Rich Franklin and Frank Mir and Chuck Liddell and Anderson Silva, and yeah, I've been watching it for a long time too. And then I kind of got out of it a little bit, and I'm kind of back into it. Tuesday, I think, starts the Ultimate Fighter reality show with Conor McGregor. So that'll be interesting, because one thing you can't say about Conor McGregor, that he definitely is entertaining. Like anytime he's on TV, he's worth watching. So that's another show that's been around forever, like the Ultimate Fighter reality show that's been around forever and ever. So it'll be fascinating to see see what he does on that show. But
Yeah, Michael Chandler. That's going to be a war, dude.
yeah, he's another the fighters. I find that so interesting. Like the fighters, like their journeys. There's not a lot of money in it. You know how hard it is to get to the top. You know, like yeah, it's fascinating. And then also like I love hearing about their like psychologically, like their mentality. Like how do they train? How do they convince themselves to get in that ring when there's a little bit of self doubt? How you know all the little tricks to trying to go in there and win and just so much on the line. So yeah, I've always loved UFC. It's one of the sports that I've been kind of consistently I think basketball and UFC has been like kind of the things I've watched the most consistent. And then throughout the last couple of years when soccer really started being televised a lot more, like I've gotten way more into soccer lately too. But you know, for a long time you couldn't watch soccer, so it was basketball and UFC were my go-tos. But I know it's a beautiful day in Cali, and I don't want to hold you up for too long. But hey, Jeff, thank you so much for joining me. Glad that you got to hang out with Scott too for a little bit, and enjoy the rest of your day. I'll put this show hopefully up shortly, and you know, thanks for the support. And then hopefully the next one you can join us on that one too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And you enjoy your weekend as well. You get a chance, check out this new band that's out of Florida. It's called Gunshine. Really good rock band.
I like the name.
Yeah, yeah, yep.
I'll have to check
It's
it
real
out.
good. Yeah, give them a listen. But yeah, enjoy your weekend, man, and we'll catch you on the next one and keep cranking out them great episodes.
Thanks, Jeff. I always appreciate the conversation and the support. And yeah, enjoy the rest of your day. And hopefully we talk again in the near future.
Sounds great, Ricky. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. Take care.
Alrighty, you too.